On November 8th, 2013, we held a press conference to protest the release from prison of Alvin Ray Quarles, also known as the bolder-than-most serial rapist. I represent two of his victims, Cynthia Medina and Mary Taylor, who were shocked and very distressed when they learned last year that Quarles was scheduled to be released in November 2013 after serving only half of his sentence. In February 1989, as a result of a plea deal, Quarles pled guilty to 4 counts of rape, 6 counts of burglary with intent to commit a felony, and 2 counts of robbery. 48 other charges were dismissed in the plea deal. Quarles was sentenced to 50 years in prison. At the time, the victims, whom I now represent, were led to believe by the San Diego District Attorney's Office that there was truth in sentencing and that Quarles would in fact serve 50 years. The victims found some comfort in the sentence in that he would not be released until he was 77 years old. Then last year, one of the victims, Cynthia Medina, heard that some prisoners might be released earlier than the sentences that they had been ordered to serve. Concerned, she decided to check to see if Quarles would be released early. She hoped that he would not. To her horror, she learned by contacting victim services at the prison that he would be released on November 16, 2013, after serving only half of his prison's term. Mary immediately notified the San Diego DA's office. Later, the DA's office indicated to Cynthia that they only became aware of the imminent early release of Quarles after they had read an interview that Cynthia had given to a local newspaper about the early release of Quarles. The San Diego DA's office then decided to file a petition seeking a civil involuntary commitment of Alvin Ray Quarles. When he was arraigned on the petition, Cynthia, Mary, and I went to court in San Diego County. Both victims were able to see Mr. Quarles briefly when he was brought into court. Later, the court determined that there was probable cause to believe that Quarles is a sexually violent predator, and the court scheduled tomorrow, July 22, 2014, for a jury trial in this matter. Both Cynthia and Mary intended to be present for the trial. They both felt that the San Diego DA's office failed to inform them 25 years ago of the true consequences of Quarles' plea and failed to tell them the truth about the sentence that he would actually serve as a result of that plea. These victims were entitled to truth in sentencing, but they failed to receive it. Initially, Quarles had been charged with 2 counts of oral copulation and 1 count of forcible rape as to Cynthia. He entered a plea to 2 counts of armed rape. Also initially, Quarles faced 3 counts as to Mary. He was charged with 1 count of robbery, 1 count of assault with intent to commit a felony with a knife, and 1 count of solicitation of murder. He entered a plea only to burglary in the first degree. At the civil commitment trial, all of the past crimes for which he was charged would have been relevant on the issue of whether or not he is a sexually violent predator. In addition, his present mental state and whether or not he presently has a qualified mental disorder that predisposes him to commit sexually violent predatory acts would also be relevant. It would also have been a battle of the experts, but there was also a possibility that these victims would testify. If that became necessary, then once again Mary and Cynthia would have found the courage to do so. They testified in the criminal case previously, and they were and are committed to doing everything they can to win justice in this case. Emotionally, they were preparing themselves for the difficult moment when they would once again face Quarles in court and testify about the crimes that he committed against them and what they suffered as a result. However, that trial will no longer take place tomorrow, since Quarles admitted last week to the petition which alleged that he is still a sexually violent predator. As a result, he will not be set free, but instead he will be remanded to Coalinga State Hospital, where sexually violent predators receive mental health care. While this is good news for the victims that Quarles will not be released as a free man back into the community at this time, Mary and Cynthia are still concerned. That is because he still has the right under Welfare and Institutions Code section 6608 or 6605 to bring a petition in the future to be released and argue that he's no longer a sexually violent predator. If the court agrees, then he will be released at that time. Cynthia, Mary, and I will be monitoring Mr. Quarles' custody status. On their behalf, I requested that they be directly notified if Mr. Quarles files such a petition. Cynthia and Mary should not have the added burden of checking on his release in order to feel safe. We want them to know that they will be automatically and directly notified if he files such a petition. Both Cynthia and Mary have been very courageous throughout this ordeal. They deserve to be treated with respect and with dignity. They should not have to be re-victimized again by a system which has already failed them by failing to tell them the truth about how long he would remain in prison and by failing to automatically inform them of his pending release. Although it will be difficult, they are committed to testifying at any future hearing if the court permits them to do so, because their goal is not only to protect themselves, but also the community. I'm very proud to represent them. They are empowered and determined women who will not stop until they achieve justice in this case. Thank you.
You have to excuse me, I'm nervous, but
Introduce yourself.
I'm Cynthia Medina. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank my family, my husband, and my friends. For without them, I would not have the strength to get through this. Secondly, I'd like to thank Gloria for her time and her compassion. Through her, I have learned courage to stand up for what I believe in without shame. Now, as for Quarles and his decision not to go to trial, I am pleased. It really doesn't surprise me. I think maybe he realized the charges against him were too much, and the chances were not very good. It gives me great pride to say I have reached my ultimate goal. He's not out free on the streets. Finally, to any victim of violent crime, I urge you not to put your blind faith in the system. Be aware that you may find yourself many years later having to deal with something that should have been put behind you. It is our right to feel our children and our neighbors are safe. It is time to stand up and say enough.
Hi, my name is Mary Taylor. Here we go. Last Thursday, I found out that the man who sexually assaulted me and terrorized the community of San Diego back in the late 1980s will not, at this time, be set free 25 years ahead of schedule. The San Diego DA's office informed me that Alvin Quarles has agreed to not contest the petition remanding him to Coalinga State Hospital as a sexually violent predator. This is very good news for me personally, as well as for our community of San Diego. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to my attorney, Gloria Allred, and my fellow victim, Cynthia. For the two of us, Gloria has become our champion. She made sure our voices were heard. Over a period of close to 3 years, Alvin Quarles committed multiple sexual assaults that included breaking into people's homes, such as my own, holding them at knife point, and forcing them to endure and engage in sexual acts at the threat of death. With Gloria's stalwart support and the actions of the district attorney's office, he will not be given the chance to just walk back into our community with an opportunity to reoffend without at least significant and extensive treatment. I also want to thank the San Diego Deputy District Attorney Wendy Patrick and her investigator Nancy for listening to us and doing what they could to file a petition seeking to involuntarily commit Alvin Quarles to a state mental hospital. We knew going into this trial, which was supposed to start tomorrow, that our best possible outcome would be for Quarles to be remanded to state hospital for treatment as a sexually violent predator. Without even entering the courtroom, that outcome has happened. So for that, we should all be thankful. However, we must also be wary. I have to be honest and tell you, I worry about the possibility of Quarles being released in the future. When Quarles was originally scheduled to be released last fall, Cynthia and I were never informed, and I only read about it in the newspaper. I would like to hear assurances from the District Attorney's Office and our state hospital system that we as victims will be kept updated and to his status. I've often told people who cared about me that this experience was originally so shattering, it consumed me. I found it hard to believe I could ever reach a place where I could deal with it and find peace. With time and support from my family, who's here today, and friends, as well as professional counseling, I learned to put those memories in a box. Over the years, as some sad and horrific events have occurred in our community, I would take the box down and kind of relive those memories. I did that when I thought about Charlie Keever, Jonathan Sellers, Danielle Van Dam, Amber Dubois, and Chelsea King. I would remember how terrified I was that night, as I did not know what choices I needed to make to survive. I could literally feel how terrified those individuals must have been in their last moments. I want their families to know my heart has always been with them. This last year has been very difficult for me. When I heard the news last year that Quarles would be released from prison 25 years early, I felt like the box fell off the shelf. I feel like I've spent the last year scrambling to figure out how to repack it and put it back on the shelf. I'm hoping my opportunity to talk to you today is the beginning of that process. In closing, I would like to say that I know Cynthia and I both hope that by coming forward and disclosing very difficult and painful memories from our past, we have made a difference, both in how our criminal justice system treats victims, as well as in ensuring, at least for now, that our community is safe from at least one more sexual predator. I do not know why I survived and some of the other brave young people whom I mentioned a moment ago did not, but I want to make sure that my survival has meaning. That's why I chose to talk with you today. Thank you.
Okay, so we're happy to answer any questions.
Is there any set amount of time? Like he said, okay, I'm sick, send me to the hospital. But could he tomorrow change his mind, or is there a period he's got to be in the hospital for so long before he can have another option?
I'm not certain about the answer to that question.
It's 1 year.
But I understand that it may be 1 year. You could reconfirm with the district attorney's office. But then in 1 year, he can seek to be released. Of course, we're going to be monitoring it. We hope that you're going to be monitoring it. And if, in fact, he is still a sexually violent offender, then he should not be released at that time.
No, I'm not. And that brings me back to everything in the beginning. When you're a victim of a sexually violent predator like that, don't put your blind faith in the system to take care of it, because you have to find everything out. As I shouldn't be having to deal with this 25 years later. He should be doing the rest of his time. We shouldn't have to worry about every year from now on I have to reface this. It's ridiculous. Well, yeah, that's their job, but that's what they say, you know. But I still am wary, you know.
Thank you.
you hearing doing these stories every few months, we see a new section about who released out of usually East County would have been nothing but that. What do you guys think when you keep hearing this kind of stuff?
That's been a huge concern of mine, and it's one I even discussed with Gloria, because, you know, of course, this whole case has brought this whole issue to the forefront of my consciousness. But it's troubling. Every couple of months, it seems, we're finding out. We just heard about somebody being released, and my understanding is with no restraints. He's totally being released without conditions. And I guess I'm torn because I understand citizens have rights, but in cases where someone is convicted of multiple sexually predatory behavior, I'm sorry, I think at some point you forfeit those rights. And particularly to consider that somebody is now going to be out there completely unmonitored. And it worries me. It worries me that if we don't keep paying attention, Quarles is going to be the next person that's on the news that, you know, is being released to East County. And, you know, I have to tell you something. I don't want him to released to East County, and I don't want him released to San Francisco or Mendocino. I mean, no community should have to live with this and know that somebody who has a history of doing this is there with the opportunity to do it again.
You guys are motivated. 25 years later, you still obviously it's still very much right here. You know, it's coming up, and you guys are so brave. And you keep doing this. You're coming down and trying to be advocates for other victims.
Yeah. Let me step back.
For me, I don't have shame for what he did to me. It's his shame. It's on him. I think that every victim should stand up and speak what they feel, because it's not on us. That shame doesn't belong to us. That's his shame. That's how you keep doing it. That's what gets you through. It's hard. I'm not saying it's not, and it is hard, but I'm not going to hide my face for him. It's his job.
Gloria, can you answer why is this category of criminal being released at all? Is there some belief somewhere that they should be reformed, repaired, or whatever, or is this just a fully cracks thing that nobody seems to get and hasn't been addressed?
Right. The district attorney's office would need to explain why, when they were told that he would be sentenced to 50 years, that instead he was scheduled to be released after 25 years. And we're just very, very happy that Cindy checked and was on top of it, and she herself, as a victim, was able to bring it to the attention of the public and the district attorney's office that, in fact, he was about to be released. And I believe that but for her, he would have been released, but instead the DA's office filed for him not to be released and instead to be committed and to the hospital. And we're very glad that she brought it to the public's attention and that the DA's office then did what was necessary to file for a hearing to commit him. But were it not for that, he would be walking the streets of San Diego County right now.
How is that possible? How does this kind of thing happen?
Well, the answer is it can happen unless victims and citizens are vigilant about monitoring predators who are sexually violent predators. In other words, we cannot just rely on the justice system to do what we expect it to do. We have to monitor it to make sure that, in fact, justice is being served, or as much justice as is possible under the circumstances.
Despite the fact that he had been under his control 25 years ago, and now behind bars, he still has this case.
He does not control the victims at this point. They are being vigilant themselves. They want as much justice as is possible under the circumstances. Of course, true justice would be that he would never have been able to get to them in the first place. But since he did, then they want to have appropriate sentencing because they're not only interested in protecting themselves, they're interested in protecting the community and making sure that, that he receives the treatment and the just sentence that he deserves. Did you want
the people to know who are making these decisions about parole, about release, to know about how this still affects you 25 years ago?
You want to say anything? Or do you want to
What would you tell them right now if you could? You kind of have the opportunity now.
Okay, sorry. I think to some extent, I sometimes hear from people, it was 25 years ago. Get over it. I don't know if I can put into words how that night changed my life. It didn't ruin my life. I've gone on with my life. I have a wonderful family. My 2 sons are with me today, along with my husband. I've had a great career. I've done some work I'm really proud of. But this is something I struggle with, and I'm allowed to struggle with it. And I want everyone to know that it doesn't matter if it's been 2 years or 25 years, or that these types of crimes against people are just horrific. And it doesn't just affect me, it affects everybody who cares about me. And I want the DA's office to realize they have to take this seriously. I don't feel that the DA's office took us seriously 25 years ago, and I've expressed that. I do feel that the DA's office today, in this case led by Wendy Patrick, did take us seriously, and they listened to us, and they invited us to be a part of this whole process, and for that I'm so grateful. But I want them to understand that every victim deserves this. Every victim needs to be kept updated, and probably the thing that most disturbed us at the time, 25 years ago, was a plea deal was made without even consulting us. It was just made and we were informed. And our hope is that those types of things won't happen again, that victims will be a part of this process and not just sort of be, I just felt like they just thought, hey, you know what, it's over, you survived it, what's the big deal? That was the impression I got 25 years ago. So I think that the DA's office has really improved, and I want them to be vigilant and keep improving and keep advocating for victims.
I have to say that were it not for these 2 brave young women, I think it's highly unlikely that this sexual predator would have decided not to pursue a hearing. I can't speak for what's in his mind, but we've made it clear that both of these victims, who are now survivors and fighters for change, were prepared to testify, if permitted to do so, in the hearing which was scheduled to begin tomorrow. So they have faced their fear of him and of being public and of testifying, and they were ready, willing, and able to take the witness stand and tell the truth if they were permitted to do so by the court. And so I really give them 98% of all of the credit for this resolve, that he decided not to proceed, although apparently he was going to proceed, until last week, when suddenly the decision was that he would not proceed with the hearing and instead would agree to be committed to the hospital. That's very, very good news, but let's not fool ourselves, because within a year we could be back here, at which time he could say, okay, I've been treated, I am no longer a sexual predator, a sexually violent predator, and now I would like to be released. Then we go through a hearing again, and they're ready, willing, and able to testify if needed. So this story is not at an end, but there's an important message here, which is that victims always need to monitor what is happening to those who are sentenced for crimes against them, and be aware of what their sentence is, when their sentence ends, and what the options are as to what will happen next. So I just give all credit to both of them for continuing to be involved in this process. It's very traumatic for them to do so, but they're very courageous, and they want to protect not only themselves, but also the community. And that's why they've been willing to speak up and speak out and be public about this.
Well, I'm not sure if I could have addressed him.
Yeah.
So I really wasn't thinking about that. My mind was trying to remember mannerisms, and it's been hard trying to do that. So I didn't really think I could address him.
I think what she was going to do was respond to questions by the district attorney, and that was it. It wasn't 100% clear that she'd be permitted to testify, but we have made it clear to the district attorney's office that they were ready, willing, and able to testify and wish to do so if the court permitted them to do so.
I just still struggle every day. My life has been hard because of it, and I have passion. I can't.
You know, I feel like in a lot of ways I told you the things that I wanted to say. I actually like to take a moment to just say thank you to all of you, because by coming out and covering this, you're bringing it to the attention of our community, and without that, you know, we would be lost. We wouldn't have voices, so you're a big part of making this happen for us. So I appreciate everybody in our local press community for covering the story and supporting it. And I just want you to know that my heart goes out to anybody who's ever experienced anything like this, and anything we can do as a community to support those people and make sure that their voices are heard. I think that's the takeaway I would like.
A minute ago, I noticed that you and Cynthia were arm in arm. You didn't know each other, but can you talk about the relationship you two have forged because of this deal? And also, are you a little bit disappointed that other women haven't joined you, because there were other victims?
Well, Cynthia and I have a weird kind of sisterhood. We did not know each other. It's very possible that we bumped into each other 25 years ago when there were some pretrial hearings and lineups and things that were going on. But having her, we were just talking on the phone this weekend, and it's like nobody else understands this like Cynthia, you know? And I think Cynthia feels the same way. You know, it was an odd feeling when we heard that he agreed to the plea, or to the commitment.
Yes.
Because that's what we wanted, right? And yet, it was odd because 25 years ago, we were preparing and gearing up for trial, and we braced ourselves and we were ready to do it. And then, like, at the 11th hour, we get told there's a plea deal, and then there was nothing. We were just informed what the deal was, and it sort of kind of left this, I think part of it was it sort of left this, like, I didn't finish that business.
But you thought it was 50 years.
And I thought it was 50, and that's why I decided not to fight it at the time, because I thought, okay, 50 years, I can, you know. And then to find out 25 years later that no, 50 equals 25, it's the new math. And then we spent this whole year, with Gloria's help, gearing up for it again and reliving the memories and reviewing the police report and remembering things that I didn't want to remember. And then the 11th hour again, we're told, oh, never mind, we don't need you. And I don't think they didn't phrase it that way, but I think that's kind of how we felt.
A little bit, yeah.
And so it's been odd. I so appreciate this chance, because I think I said it earlier, I need to move on. I need to kind of get back on track with my life. I know Cynthia feels the same way. Gloria is always going to be like the dearest woman to us. I'm thankful. Sometimes they say good things come out of bad situation. Gloria's definitely been a good thing for us, and so I think, I guess that sort of says it for me.
Okay. So the last thing is, there is a message for victims of any crime, which is you need to continue to monitor the sentences that are handed down for the perpetrators of the crimes against you, and be sure that the sentences that are served are in fact the sentences that you believe were handed down, and just stay on top of that. And then if something seems to be wrong in the system, then you need to point that out. Get yourself to the district attorney's office, ask the questions, find a private attorney to give you advice,
I wish I'd done that.
and stay involved, because that way you can be sure that whatever is just should happen, if you can have any role in making it happen. But it's only because of their courage and following this that, you know, he, I think, has now decided not to go ahead with the hearing tomorrow. So all credit goes to them as far as I'm concerned. And we'll also thank the present San Diego DA's office for filing for the hearing. And we hope that they're going to stay on top of this. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.